Hi, my name's Cody Bryson. I'm an honors student and I am a senior at Western Carolina University. The reason for this video is to address the honors contract that I did regarding my Sociology 103 Section 71 class. Having been an honors student for my entire college career and most of my high school career, I've done a pretty broad array of different projects from papers to presentations to building things to experiencing things. So I felt pretty comfortable about the basics of the project, but one thing I hadn't done was addressed a sociological issue. Um, Sadly, I was not able to take a sociology class until my senior year, um, and that actually came first as a way just to graduate. Then, after taking sociology with Dr. Burns, I realized that without a doubt, if I had more time, I probably would have taken a lot more sociology classes and looked into maybe minoring in it, or if I was sane enough to double major. But as that's not possible anymore, we just moved forward. But the project I chose to talk about was initially white privilege, and then talking about discrimination and prejudice in general. Uh, what I did and like to do for all my projects is find something that's practical, but at the same time it's going to be useful. So I'm an RA in the honors dorm Boston, and I thought, what is something that's going to be positive for myself, positive for the sociology program, and positive for students? So what I decided to do was to put on a program. Being an RA, we have to put on 2 programs a month. Usually one can be more social, another one's going to fit a set of standards that the school describes. And one of those standards is diversity. So what I decided to do was gather as many students as I could to come and meet on a Thursday, and we were going to talk about some issues in sociology. We ended up having, excuse me, we ended up having 35 students of mixed race, gender, sexuality, and I was really happy about that because a lot of times you get groups of friends and you don't get diversity as you would hope for, but I got a pretty nice array of students. And so what we initially talked about was just diversity in general and how they thought it related to them. And I don't know, I feel like a lot of students aren't as culturally diverse as they would like to, as they would say they are. They don't spend a lot of time outside of their comfort zones. They don't spend a lot of time getting to know their cultures. They might have friends who are of different races, different sexual orientations, but in reality, they really avoid a lot of the issues. But what we talked about was first identifying what white privilege is, and the concept that in society, white is viewed as better. Now, of course, that's not my view, but a societal view, if you look at the facts, proves that being white is better. One specific instance that we talked about in class was mortgage lending, and the fact that people on the same playing field with the same history and same credit scores, um, if you were white, you were given better rates and more loans. If you were African American, the rates dropped significantly, and the amount of loans given out were dropped significantly as well. Then we identified racism, which itself is a set of beliefs about a group of people used to justify inequality based directly on race. And we kind of ran with this for a little while, and I guess the point that I tried to hammer in was that you encounter all forms of racism throughout your entire life. From when you go the store, from when you're gonna listen to the radio, from when you watch TV, to your interactions with friends. Everything is inherently racist. Now, I don't mean that to scare everyone and make them, suddenly start questioning their entire lives, but at the same time, I do. I want them to be active citizens and to realize that their actions do affect other people and that they do fundamentally continue to fuel these kind of ideas. And I had a student ask, well, how do my everyday actions influence racism? And I said, well, okay, give me an example of a show you like. And one of them said, oh, I love to watch Family Guy. And so I said, do you watch it a lot? He said, yeah. And I pointed out an example. I was like, okay, well, there's this example where the dog Brian is O.J. Simpson comes down, and every time that O.J. says anything, or any black person for that matter, Brian will bark at him, just over and over and over, and he'll say, Brian's excuse will be, oh, sorry, man, it's just the way I was raised. And so we'll see that kind of issue, and I'll say, well, that's funny to you, right? And he goes, yeah, I mean, I don't mean anything by it. And I say, well, when you do that, you do mean something by it, because you're helping to fuel that racism. Because you don't turn the channel, because you don't say that's not funny, or because even the fact that, they have the character doing that, and that someone doesn't speak out that that's racist, fuels the fires for racism, because we find that funny as Americans, as citizens, as people of the world. So then we kind of transitioned out of that. Not to say we didn't focus on it, we spent a lot of time on it, but we transitioned out of that to sexuality, to gender, just inequality in general, and all kinds of prejudice. We talked about in institutions how being a homosexual can be not very advantageous for trying to find a job, especially in the education field, since we do have a lot of teaching fellows, and how discriminated against people are. And I guess what I wanted students to feel was what it was like to be in those shoes. So we passed out cards that represented different things, and people treated them differently based on what their card was. And, excuse my language, but I told people not to hold back. They would say things like bag, or, N-bombs were dropped. People's names were replaced with different animals, different things. And I thought it was a really healthy experience, but at the same time kind of upsetting. And that was a good thing, because students got to see what it was like to be in the roles of another person a little bit. And so we saw some good reactions with that, and then I asked for their reactions, and I said, how did this make you feel? And then they told me how they felt. And you get every now and then, this doesn't really affect me, this is stupid. But there were a lot of people who really took it to heart and thought about what they were doing, how they're speaking, and how every day subtle things really do affect other people. So I'm not going to take all your time, but I don't like to just talk about an issue and not have a plan. So what we decided to do was to come up with a 3-step plan. You obviously get the many steps, and it's a lot deeper than what we talked about, but these are some small steps that you can do to help prevent these issues from happening and to be progressive. We said our first step is acceptance. In everything you do, accept the fact that society is racist. Don't sit at home and pout and cry. Don't make a list of people who you want to avoid because they're racist, or because they're sexist, or because they have prejudice against sexuality. What you need to do is live your life to the fullest that you can. Do everything you do and do it to the best of your ability. Succeed on your own as a person. Our second step is to speak out. Now, like I said, you want to make a list of people to avoid. Instead, speak out. Be the person who seeks that person out to tell them that there is an issue. Be an activist. If you want to protest, protest. I'm not telling you to chain yourself to Western's and acceptance office and tell them to accept more black students, but at the same time, maybe you should. That's whatever you feel strongly about and passionate about, stand up for it, because no one else is going to if you don't. You have to start that revolution. Um, and then, that's going to come with some sacrifice. And the third, it was to tear it down. We want to break down the social barriers. The fact that society is always going to have things that separate us. Socialism itself proves that there are social groups throughout all of society, and that can be as simple as family, or gender or race, or that can be specific as people who like the color blue and how that relates to them. um, but I guess the overall goal we were talking about was to live in a society that is inherently different, but at the same time is socially equal. And to get to that point, you're going to have to be the ones to break down the barriers. You're going to have to be the ones to speak out um, against stuff, not just in the activism form, but in the way you live your life. You're going to have to make choices that are going to reflect your views. So that was my presentation. My paper might seem a little factual if you guys get a chance to look at it, but that's just because I wanted to make sure and get the details in there. I think that overall it meshed in between the activity and the paper and came together in a mesh, because that was one thing we actually said, was we wanted a mesh in society of these ideas and the way we want society to be. So that's my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and I certainly enjoyed the research, certainly enjoyed the presentation and writing of the paper. Sorry I couldn't be present. My schedule wouldn't allow it, but I wish you all the best and look forward to hearing your reactions.